Hello and welcome. I'm Craig Carrington, and today's topic is the Great American Ponzi. In its current state, the U.S. economy is nothing more than the Ponzi schemes of Madoff and Stanford, which just recently made the news. Our economy is no more sound, no more well-founded. It is no different than these illegal schemes which dupe investors out of their investment capital. So long as some investor is willing to put money into the Ponzi scheme, it all continues status quo. But when the investment dries up, the entire thing falls apart. And that is what the U.S. is facing. We are facing an utter collapse because of our inability to control our own debt. So long as foreign countries are willing to finance that debt, we can continue without much worry. But if those investors pull out, or worse yet, if their economies are so undermined by their constant funding of our debt that they collapse, the U.S. grinds to a halt with them. We need to find some way to get out of this. We have two choices. We can either bankrupt ourselves into oblivion by financing debt that we have no way of paying back, or we can buckle down and dig in some way to work ourselves out of this debt crisis. For some reason, the Federal Reserve and the Treasury think that they can finance debt with debt, and that this equals some sort of growth. They want the monetary system to grow, and they want people to have access to lending. But the simple fact is, if there's no lending out there, there's no reason to prop up a collapsing system. Last year, then Treasury Secretary Henry Paulson put together a $700 billion bailout plan, which had a lot of promise for staving off disaster in the U.S. economy. Unfortunately, it was put together all wrong. The program was centered around the Troubled Asset Relief Program, and instead of finding some way to really fix the problems that are underlying the financial institutions, it merely propped them up in their current state of decay. Financial institutions around the United States have been battered by stock losses and accounting write-downs for over a year. And instead of addressing the underlying problems, instead of refurbishing the foundation of these companies, we simply injected them with capital and told them to continue on status quo. We told them not to change their policies. We allowed them to continue with the structure which destroyed the financial systems in the United States. Right now, the U.S. is spending hundreds of billions of dollars to back companies like American International, Citigroup, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, Bank of America, and even to some extent the healthier groups like Wells Fargo and J.P. Morgan Chase. Hundreds of billions of dollars of your money is being spent in the wrong way. Instead of buckling down and working our way through the system, instead of finding a way to put it back into a structure which was sound, which held on to capital and which created wealth, we simply allowed the decaying, destroyed financial institutions to stay. We propped up the edifice, but we didn't back up the rest of it. The United States had two choices, and we chose the worst possibility. There's a new face in the Treasury Department, Secretary Timothy Geithner. And while the leader at the top may have changed, the policy directives remain unchanged. The United States, as policy, continues to finance debt with more debt. A Ponzi scheme always falls apart because either the investors run out of money or no new investors can be found. And the U.S. is facing this situation right now. Our foreign lenders face two choices. They can continue to lend us money, continue to tie their economies to our bankrupting one, and fall into bankruptcy with us, or they can pull out, realizing that there's no way for us to pay back our obligations. The U.S. currently has up to $60 trillion in debt, according to truthin08.org. This is 6 times greater than the official tally given by the U.S. government. There's no way of us paying back the $60 trillion in obligations that we hold. The U.S. has no way of financing it, and eventually our lenders will come to this realization. We have one choice, and that is to cut the amount that we spend as a government, to increase the interest rates on the money that we lend to ourselves, and to find some way of increasing taxes so that we can increase the receipts of the government, have more domestic fundraising and less funds coming from overseas. The U.S. does not have any sustainable growth path for the future, and we need one. Even if the stimulus and the bailout do find some way of recovering the U.S. economy, it could simply make the next situation, the next economic crisis, even worse, because there's nothing underlying the economy. There's no sound policy. There's no sound directive. It's all just debt and more debt. On behalf of concerned citizens, I'm Craig Carrington with economyincrisis.org. news.
Wake up, America! Open up your eyes! Wake up, America! Wake up!
Produced by economyincrisis.org.